All right. You have a roadmap. You have stuff on the calendar. Feels real, doesn't it? hmm So let me walk you through how you evaluate now what you have on that plan. For many of you, and I know that this is probably the experience of 90% of people who go through this for the first time with me, they think, holy shit balls, I've got a lot going on in my business. You do. There's just no way around it. There's just a lot of activity to support any given business. One of the most illuminating things, though, is when we go through this process and can really start to identify when it's happening, the frequency, if it's recurring, is it starts to get really easy to peel out things to be like, oh, this might not be the best use of my time. This might be something I could train someone else to do. You feel me? Because as our businesses grow, we often need to build that infrastructure and that team support to help us do that. It's hard doing all of it on your own. And I think it is one of the biggest gifts of doing this particular process is starting to identify those things that can easily be taught to someone else. Now, in a future lesson, we're going to talk about how you build a beautiful system and process to help support you in your business to make things more easily repeatable. And anything that repeats can have a process. It's that simple. So we'll talk about that in a different lesson, but know that for now, you've done that very initial work that needs to be done to even identify what deserves a system or a process. So kudos to you. Now, here are a couple of questions I want you to consider as you think about everything in the roadmap. Now, let me say first, it's wise to take a step back from it. So the very first thing I'm going to suggest that you do is take a week away from what you just built, literally. Like put a date in your calendar and be like, I will revisit this in 1 week because I want you to have some space from it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of brain power. Many times it's the first time you've ever really thought about all the things that you do and put them in one place. Good. Take a break. When you come back to it, these are the questions I want you to answer. 1, do you feel like you have more or less going on than you thought you did? I have a suspicion what the answer is. Probably more. Are there things that may need to come off? Maybe. Maybe not. And that's okay. Number 2, does this plan feel manageable or overwhelming? And what are the areas specifically that cause you the most concern? So if you can now look at that entire 12 months and see it all there, are there some areas where you're like, oh, this area is like giving me a heart attack every time I look at it? Identify those things because those are the things that will continue to trip us up. And those are the things that we would want to find a solution for quickly, meaning, can we teach someone else to do this? Could we hire someone, even if it's outsourced, to help us with it? Is there something that we can make easier in the process? Chances are. So just note those things because I want you to at least shine some light on them. And the last question is, where do you see areas of overlapping activity? So remember at the very end of the last lesson, I said to you, you're going to want to look through your calendar. So this is how you do this. You're going to scan from top to bottom through each month. Let's say you look at the month of February. What are all the things that are happening in February? March. All the things that are happening in March. Now, this is what we're looking for. Do we have too much in any given month? So let's say, for example, you're like, oh man, I plan to launch a new product, update my website, do 3,000 photo shoots. I'm joking. Hire a team member and take vacation. Is that a recipe for disaster or what? So what we really want to look at is like the weight of the activities that are in there. How much is going to have to go in that? And am I really setting myself up to win or not? And oftentimes this happens on the front end of a vacation or on the back end of a vacation. You feel me? So you know you're going to be out of town. You cram to get a whole bunch of stuff done. But when you get back, you're like, oh my God, now I have a boatload of other things to do. So I want you to really be cognizant of those times that you're stepping away from your business so that you can give yourself some grace and some permission to not be jamming so much stuff in right when you really want to be enjoying the other part of your life that's away from your work. You feel me? So do take the time to really go through the plan and walk it just top to bottom and say like, all right, February, I feel good about it. Or if not, what needs to shift? Now, the blessing of doing this in the digital format is you can just slide those cells over and drag them into a different month. Good to go. Okay? So if you have any questions, do reach out and let me know. Now, the very last thing I want to say is this stuff is going to change, right? It's meant to be a living and breathing document. So as you start to roll through your year and your business starts to change and evolve as it always does, you're going to come in here and update some stuff. You're not married to it being the way it is. It doesn't have to be fiercely like you've put it, but the way you've crafted it is saying like, in my ideal year, this is the stuff I'm going to be doing. And we will also take a look at this at the very end after we've built the financials to really come back and say, do I have the right activities in my business to support me making that money? Because there may be some things that also need to change. And that's cool. So just know, don't grasp onto this too tightly. It's going to ebb and it's going to flow, and that's exactly what you want. All right, I'm really proud of you. Stick with me as we head into the next lesson, which is called Your Path to Profitability. And of course, if you're trying to cram this out, maybe take a day off. See me back here tomorrow. All right.